The following program is brought to you in conjunction with the folks at Grace to All with Paul Gray. Now we bring to you The Agape Guy Show with your host, Lenny Manning.
I'm making everything I love.
The following program contains material that some might consider to be highly controversial. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to The Agape Guy Show. I'm your host, Lenny Manning. Today I'm going to be talking about a very controversial subject, so I'm giving a word of warning ahead of time. I'm continuing with my series, Understanding the Duns, Series 2. I'm actually working on a series within a series about somewhat paranormal topics. I'm going to be picking up where we left off with the last couple of episodes of the show. The last two episodes I talked about near-death experiences as well as ghosts and paranormal activity. So with another controversial subject like this, I'll again refuse to say I'm right and everyone else is wrong. I'll also refuse to demand that everyone follow my beliefs to the very last detail. Many of us have seen evidence against some of our old beliefs, so we have likely reassessed our views and beliefs, especially once we see better evidence for or against certain things. Through the last few years, I've come to realize that I need to sift through the evidence before I say anything definitive. I also don't want to be so arrogant as to think I don't need to look at any evidence. I was adamant about my beliefs when I was a young adult. Yet since I learned about God's love and sifted through my beliefs, I stopped being so adamant about my beliefs. I've learned to hold things loosely, so if my beliefs get disproved, I can be more at ease with letting go of bad beliefs. I saw a Chinese proverb that addressed stuff like this. It went something like this: "He who thinks he has all the answers has not heard all the questions." So in other words, if you think you have all the right answers, you really don't know what you're talking about. You would need to have all the knowledge of everything in the universe to know all the answers. No mere mortal has that much intellectual capacity or capability or that much knowledge. So they clearly don't know what they're talking about. I know a bit about that because, well, I used to be that type of a person. When some of my beliefs were disproved right before my own eyes, I was shocked and had to make some serious changes. So today we are moving down the line from NDEs and ghosts to the subject of UFOs and extraterrestrial beings. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Why is this Lenny guy talking about crazy stuff and conspiracy theories? Well, don't tune me out just yet, but please be willing to at least listen to what I have to say. I recently heard a wise and competent man tell me some interesting things. He said that it wouldn't surprise him if there was intelligent life in other places in the universe. He also mentioned that in previous centuries and millennia, many, if not most people believed in these things. So maybe it isn't so outlandish or out of the ordinary. I've also heard other wise and psychologically stable folks say some related statements. They said that God can do anything and could have made other forms of intelligent life. To say otherwise is to say that God cannot be omnipotent, omniscient, creative, or all-encompassing. It's also somewhat like putting God in a box and saying God can only act in this one certain way like I was taught in church. So it seems like we should be open to the possibility that God might do things differently than our legalistic church groups taught us when we were young. I would say a few things to those who think this cannot possibly be real, or it just distracts us away from God. Here's what I would say. If there was intelligent life out there somewhere, I would say these three things. 1, it would show that God is more wise, intelligent, and creative than we had comprehended. As the Psalm says, we are wonderfully and intricately made. So maybe God does lots more intricate things than we thought. 2, God's creation is a lot more expansive and far-reaching than we could have ever imagined. So maybe God did a lot more than work with one small planet and left everything else to remain unused and vacant. 3, God loves us more than we have imagined because He sent Jesus here to help us understand God's love. So God took the time to focus on us humans enough to help us remember that God loves us beyond measure. It also seems that as we return to focusing on God's love, many of our other problems seem to fade into the distance. It even seems like wars and much of our angst fades into obscurity when God's love is our primary focal point and goal. I've actually heard some theologians say a few interesting things on the matter of whether ETs are real. I've heard theologians say it wouldn't adversely impact their Christian beliefs at all if ETs were real. Some have also said that it wouldn't diminish the value of human life at all either. It actually shows that God loves us and values us because He thought enough of us to set us back on track with His love, especially since we were off track and a bit warlike. God seemed to want to put us back on a course toward the way to return to recognizing Him as being loving to all people. If God loved us enough to do that, then I think God places a lot of value on us humans. So we aren't a small speck in the gigantic ocean of the universe, but we are the ocean in a drop. We aren't a drop in the ocean. We are the ocean in a drop. I also think creation and the whole universe might be a lot more grand in its scope than we had previously thought. So, as you might see, even theologians and learned scholars are starting to be open-minded to this subject. I know some of you might be thinking that this is just a goofy conspiracy theory with no evidence whatsoever. Well, I'd say that I'm not so sure of either one of those anymore. Do you know that evidence now shows that the term conspiracy theory was actually invented by the intelligence gathering community? They invented it to discredit anyone who knows too much information. It was also made to make honest witnesses and whistleblowers look goofy or to discredit them. That way, the intelligence community wouldn't get called before Congress to answer embarrassing questions or get prosecuted in court. That's what happened in the 1970s with the so-called church hearings from a U.S. senator whose name was Frank Church. So, I guess some of you might be wondering about whether I can produce any evidence, and I'll get to that in a moment. You might want to see some interviews with a constitutional lawyer named Daniel Sheehan who saw some of this stuff. He was interviewed by a few different guys that you can find on YouTube. Those interviews are by guys like 1. Jesse Michaels, 2. Danny Jones, 3. Michael Phillips on the Third Eye Drops podcast, 4. Christian Harloff's podcast, 5. Whitley Strieber's podcast, 6. The Freedom Pack podcast with Joseph and Lewis, 7. Julian Dory's podcast, 8. George St. Pierre's podcast, 9. Area 52 podcast with Chris Ramsey, 10. Night Shift with Clint Weldon, 11. New Thinking Aloud with Jeffrey Mishlove, and 12. That UFO podcast with Andy McGrillen. Well, What if I told you that reputable congressmen from the United States Congress agree that this is real? Like Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee. What if I also told you that there is currently a serious congressional investigation into these matters? What if I said there was evidence that UFOs are more than experimental aircraft for the United States Air Force? What if I started talking about serious evidence? Now, there is a guy who says he has talked to first-hand witnesses who say they work to reverse engineer UFOs. Some first-hand witnesses say that they have seen the extraterrestrial pilots. This guy has also had people help him make documentaries where he reveals some of the evidence. That guy's videos keep getting censored and taken off of YouTube and television. He puts them back on YouTube, but now and then they get taken down again. That guy is so controversial that the government censors most podcasts where he's interviewed. I am afraid that I cannot even say the guy's name, or I might get censored myself. I'll put his name on the screen so you can see it. It's likely a name that many of you have not heard. There's a good reason you haven't heard of him. It's due to the fact that almost all discussions about him get censored or removed from the internet and television. He's a medical doctor and surgeon, so he's a stable and competent man. His uncle worked on creating the lunar module for the NASA moon landings. His conversations with his uncle, folks at NASA and folks with spaceflight and aeronautics expertise, led him to learn about this stuff. That guy has talked to hundreds of people who have seen this stuff firsthand, and some have worked on the crafts. So he isn't dealing with hearsay and rumors or talking to crazy folks who have no evidence for their claims. In the 1990s, the doctor went on a TV show to talk about this stuff, and the host had to stop talking to him. The TV studio got a call during a commercial break, and they were told to stop talking to the doctor. Otherwise, the government would immediately take the show off the air. Since that time, it's been difficult for the doctor to get the information out to the public. He also has briefed presidents, folks in the U.S. Congress, and even heads of the intelligence community. One of the heads of an intelligence group in the intelligence community said he would release the information to the public within a couple of days. Yet within one day, that guy passed away under mysterious circumstances. The doctor has also recently been working with some folks in Congress to help bring this under proper congressional oversight. Congress has been kept ignorant of the information for the most part, so the people who have kept this covert have illegally been keeping it away from congressional oversight. Some of these covert people lie about this stuff, and they're telling Christians that these ETs are demons. Yet that is a lie, and they know it. The doctor has pointed out this lie and has given evidence to prove that it's lies. These dishonest covert folks say things like this to divert people away from the truth. The doctor even spoke to a theological expert on demons who agreed these ETs are not demons. That expert said to the doctor, "Why would spirit entities need flying vehicles to get around and go to different places?" Not to mention, the doctor knows these people who are telling these lies. These people doing the lying are known government disinformation specialists, trained to propagandize and mislead people. The doctor knows those people and what government agency they're from. Most are from the intelligence gathering community. I'd also like to mention that the doctor said all the people working in these secret projects say all the ETs are friendly. So there's no need to fear any of this. Besides, if they were hostile, they would have destroyed us by now. He also has found out that all the scary stuff is stuff that the covert people in the government faked for psychological warfare purposes. So all the abductions were staged by covert agents using man-made robots and lots of Hollywood special effects. Those covert agents actually kidnapped people and manipulated them. It's the same thing with all the so-called cattle mutilations. It was all done by covert agents in order to distract and manipulate people. So there's no need to fear any of this subject. The doctor says that the closest thing to the ETs being an enemy is one little thing. The ETs don't want us going around with high-tech equipment and killing intelligent life forms like them. So they want to limit our technology until we become more peaceful. So the ETs have no desire to wipe us out or eat us or anything like that. That's all just fake Hollywood stuff. There is absolutely no need to fear this subject. The doctor has also mentioned that if you watch a specific documentary he made, you'll know more than most folks in Congress do. I'll put the name of that documentary on the screen and a link on this episode that's on my YouTube channel, or on this video on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description section below it. You can likely find that documentary on YouTube, Roku, and the Amazon Fire Stick. It should be free to watch. Although they take it down sometimes and try to censor it, the doctor just tries to put it back up again. The doctor also had a couple of big press conferences, but the intel community sabotaged the first one and cut his TV feed. The other one from 2023 is on YouTube, and you can watch it for free. I'll put the name of his press club event that you can put in the YouTube search box to find it. I'll also put a link on this episode that's on my YouTube channel. You might also want to look for more evidence in some of his other documentaries that are worth looking at. Here's a few titles you might want to look for. I can't say the names, but I'll put them on the screen and on my YouTube video description section. The doctor has also got a website with videos of several more witnesses talking about things they saw or worked on. The problem is, every time I go to the website, my computer starts acting funny. So I'll warn you that this might happen. I am wondering if the government tracks his website and hacks people who visit his website. Every time I visit his website, I have to run computer scans for malware and spyware to get my computer working right again. I'll put the website on the screen, but don't blame me if your computer acts funny after you visit his website. I'll put the name of the software I use to clean the malware off of my computer afterwards as well. Now, another good source for evidence you can look for is the constitutional lawyer named Daniel Sheehan. I mentioned him earlier. He is a very learned man and a lawyer, so I'd say he's competent and a stable person. You might have even seen him in some hearings in the United States Congress. He's been a lawyer for people who are called to testify before Congress. Mr. Sheehan has also been interviewed by several people who have podcasts, and some of those folks get censored as well. I'll put that list back up to show you some of the people on YouTube who have interviewed Mr. Sheehan. You can look for those folks on in the YouTube search box. Then go to their YouTube channels and their search boxes on their channels and look up the name Daniel Sheehan. Mr. Sheehan was asked to be part of an investigation at the behest of President Carter and Congress. President Carter asked some questions about this issue and couldn't get a good answer, so he wanted to investigate this issue along with the United States Congress. So Mr. Sheehan went to get some documents for the investigation and went to the Madison Building in Washington, D.C. Mr. Sheehan mentioned on some podcast what happened that day he went to get the documents from the Madison Building. Here's what happened on that day in 1977. Mr. Sheehan was told what buildings to go to and that he would need 2 types of identification to enter the building. He went to the building when it was new and no one was using it, but there were 2 guards out front. He then went into a small room with a few files with microfiche slides, little slides you put in the machine to see it. You need to take those and put them on a machine to focus in and magnify the photo copies and the files and the pictures of it so you can see it. A lot of it was files from Project Blue Book that had been kept secret from the general public. He saw a picture of a real crashed UFO with Air Force personnel standing next to it. It turned out that a lot of this stuff was real. Some had been knocked out of the sky by a high-energy pulse radar system. So it wasn't that they crashed due to a mere storm where lightning hit the spacecraft. It was basically radar that was used as an electromagnetic pulse weapon. It turned out that all the Project Blue Book material that was released to the public was either whitewashed or just falsified. The files were genuine evidence of real flying vehicles or recovered vehicles, but those files weren't released to the general public. Mr. Sheehan is another person who is working with Congress to get this stuff under proper congressional oversight. Now, I know many of you are likely very skeptical and doubtful about all of this stuff, but hear me out. Take a look at the evidence these guys have accumulated. If you want to criticize me for saying these things, please do your homework before you write this stuff off as being fake. At least watch the first documentary and the 2023 press conference with the doctor. The title of the documentary should be on your screen. If you watch those videos, you can at least see what I'm talking about, and you can critique the evidence for yourself. Please first watch those videos before you criticize me, though. As a guy recently said, if you don't believe in beings from other planets, maybe you're the conspiracy theorist after looking at all this evidence. Let's not be so judgmental anyways. I think Jesus wanted us to stop having such condemning attitudes. So let's be kind-hearted toward everyone involved. Let's be willing to examine the evidence for ourselves. As you might possibly remember from the last episode, I have another YouTube channel about paranormal stuff I've seen. Well, Season 3 will be coming out someday soon. Then in Season 3, I'll talk about this type of stuff and how I've interacted with it. It all started with a dream that was like a Type 2 NDE experience. Apparently, a lot of people who had NDEs or near-death experiences are highly likely to have experiences with ghosts and UFOs. Now, could my dreams about an NDE and UFO have been mere dreams? Maybe. Could it have been real? Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? I have no way of knowing for sure, and I don't think I have any solid evidence to prove it was real. So, you can believe whatever you wish. I just hope you will look at the evidence I'm sharing with you right now. So, I guess you can see why I don't talk to most people about my Type 2 NDE or this UFO stuff. It's because most people can't handle it or hear it without looking down on me or talking down to me. Yet, if condemnation is the only response I get, then I think there might be a problem behind their doubtful thoughts. Maybe some of their underlying beliefs might be an excessively judgmental and condemning mindset. Maybe folks need to take a look at the fruit that their beliefs are producing. Maybe we all need to look at the quality of our beliefs and see if those beliefs align with the fruit of the Spirit, and see if they stand up to scrutiny. I'd also say that I want to remain humble and kind, and I want to avoid acting arrogant and egotistical. I don't want people to feel the need to follow my every whim or cater to my every whim. That's not right. Jesus Christ said that we should refrain from acting as lords over others. You can see that in the Bible in Matthew 20, 25 through 28, Mark 10, 42 through 45, Luke 22, 25 through 26, and it's repeated in 1 Peter 5, verses 2 and 3. Acting as a lord over others usually leads to some very unsavory repercussions, like the Jim Jones group that ended in a lot of lives being lost. So it all comes down to God loving all of us and wanting us to share that love with other people. That's all. Even if you refuse to believe anything I said here today, just remember that God loves you. You don't have to follow a long laundry list of so-called righteous deeds to make God find you acceptable. God already loves you unconditionally and already considers you to be acceptable. Nothing can ever change that because God's love is eternal and his loving nature cannot change. Just look at the description of NDEs from non-Christians. You can look at the case with Dr. Eben Alexander. He was an atheist who had an NDE. He seemed to go to heaven, and it definitely changed his perspective. I've also noticed that almost all NDEs give the person a better perspective of God's love. So feel free to look into NDEs and the other stuff I talked about on this episode. Feel free to examine the evidence for all of this stuff for yourself. Feel free to look into the evidence that was presented by the doctor and the lawyer named Daniel Sheehan. As for now, I think I'm almost out of time for this episode, so for now, I'll give you this word of wisdom. If anything you hear, are taught, or believe makes you feel fear, then it's most likely not true and not from God. God is love. God is pure light and goodness, and there's no hint of him turning away from being pure light and goodness. You can see that in 1 John 1:5 and James 1:17 in the Bible. So feel free to relax into God's love and goodness as if it's the most perfect and comfortable bed you've ever seen. Relax into it and get some good, peaceful rest so it will allow you to regain your strength and your inner peace. It sure did that for me. So on that note, I'll say that I'm your host, Lenny Manning, and I hope to see you in the next episode of the Agape Guy Show. Goodbye for now.